today as a kickoff for a new item in our digital magazine called One School Street, and that can be found at oneschoolstreet.org, all lowercase. And the new feature is that we're going to be doing 25 interviews for graduates or from graduates of Souhegan High School over the past 25 years. And we're starting today, and we're going to call that 25 grads. So if you go to One School Street, you'll see that section up pretty soon. And we're starting today with one of our graduates, recent graduates, and I'm going to introduce you to her right now. Good morning, Morgan.
Good morning.
Morgan, tell us who you are and where you're from.
Well, I'm Morgan Chamberlain. I'm from Mount Vernon. I've lived there since I was 4 years old, I think. I'm a graduate of Souhegan. I'm a graduate of Syracuse University, just graduated this past May. And I am the freelance digital media consultant for One School Street.
Wonderful. So take us through your educational journey, starting with Mount Vernon and AMS and probably Souhegan.
Mm-hmm.
Just an idea of your educational journey.
Yeah, so I started at the Mount Vernon Village School. I was part of the first kindergarten class with Mrs. Dunn. She was previously a first grade teacher, and then she started teaching kindergarten there, so that was a big deal. We had 36 kids in our graduating class at MVVS, and I was with them from kindergarten to 6th grade. So they were more like siblings than classmates at a lot of times, because you'd be in class with all of them at some point and do all of the town events and play dates and all those things. And then we went over to AMS in 7th grade and had 2 years there, and then Souhegan for 4 years.
So kind of give me a gauge of how you think we did as educational institutions from Mount Vernon and AMS and Souhegan to prepare you for Syracuse University.
I think that the best thing that Souhegan specifically does to prepare graduates for college is just the level of respect between adults and students. I think that when I got to college, I met a lot of people who didn't know how to talk to adults. And a lot of me being able to talk to adults has to do with growing up in a town as small as Mount Vernon. I always went to parties and different town events and would have conversations with the parents as if, you know, I was a little adult and they treated me that way, and it's not like it was kids and then parents. It was very integrated. And going to Souhegan, where you call all of the teachers by their first names and they have you do, you know, class projects, and there's a lot of just collaboration, and I think that that's really important going into college, especially since so many degrees and programs are so different. It's not all study in the library and then take a test. And when you have a degree, something like communications like I had, being able to work with other people and work with adults and talk to professors and have that level of communication is very important. And I saw a lot of students lacking that because they had just had a lot of, you know, studying and then take the test and never do the information again. So they didn't know how to do different types of projects and communicate with their professors.
So since I've been here, I hear that as a hallmark of Souhegan. Seems like that's been there for every class,
yeah.
Right? So some interesting pieces of Souhegan are the senior project, other kinds of features at Souhegan, also AMS. Talk to me about, if you could, a little bit about your senior project.
So for my senior project, I created a talk show with one of my best friends, Devin LaPointe, and it was called Dev and Mo in the Morning. And we only filmed a few segments. Looking back, we were amateurs. We didn't know what we were doing at all, and it was, you know, not the best quality content, but it was cool to kind of explore what we were interested in, because we both loved Ellen and we loved, you know, Devin's a really funny person and we loved goofing around together, and she did more of the filming and editing aspect for her senior project, and I focused on social media, which is funny because that's what I do now for One School Street. So I focused on social media marketing and how you can tweet about different things that are coming up. I did a lot of research with all of that. So that project actually started my interest in social media marketing, and now I'm starting my own consulting business with social media marketing. So without even realizing it, senior project kind of kickstarted my career in a way.
So I know I had a chance to meet you as a senior.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so you were in my advisory
I was.
with Terry Berna, and you came in probably once a week, once
Couple
every
times
other
a
week.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, a few times a week. You were there a lot, which was really great, and I remember thinking, that's so awesome that Peter is running the whole school district, but he also really wants to be in the classroom and getting to know the students and getting to know the system. So I thought it was great that you came in because you're obviously a very busy person. You didn't have to do that,
Right.
but you really care about the students and really diving into the curriculum, and sitting in a classroom and advisory is the best way to do that. So that was really great, and you came to a lot of different events and things. So do you still do that?
I do.
That's
I was
awesome.
senior advisory this year.
That's
With
awesome.
Jenny Dienick. Great
Yeah.
group, just like we had a great group, didn't we? It was a,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun.
It was a
the
lot of
best
fun.
part of my day, I think.
It was the best part of my day too.
So talk about importance of advisory, things that you remember that you did in the 4 years of advisory, and why does Southern have an advisory like that? Is it like a cornerstone of a school? Why do you think they have it?
I think it's hard to describe advisory to people who haven't had it. I usually describe it as kind of like a homeroom, but smaller and more personal. I think it's really important to get together with that group every day because it's so mixed up that usually it's people, I mean, obviously, Sauhegan is a small school. You know everyone. I mean, these towns are small, like you know everyone, but you don't spend an hour or whatever the period is just talking to people that you don't normally talk to. So it's nice that you get a group of kids who don't have lunch together, don't hang out after school, and talking about different issues, different things that are happening. I know that in advisory there's a lot of food, obviously, a lot of sharing different meals, different snacks, whatever, but there's also a lot of serious conversations when things happen in the news or in the community. So that's really important. When something tragic happens, it's nice that you can sit and talk with these people and kind of open up with them. It's really just a safe space. With people that you're not as familiar with, I think it helps you learn that not everyone is the same. We all come from, although a lot of people in this town are very similar and have similar upbringings, there are people who have different upbringings, and it was a nice way to learn that you don't always know what's going on in someone's life. So I think that lesson definitely
Yeah, I felt
carries
it was
on.
like a home base.
Mhm.
You could go there, you knew it was going to be there. Terry was always there.
Yes.
Always would liven up the conversation.
Yes.
And take care of all of you, and I watched mostly. But
Yes.
so in your travels and at Syracuse,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of kids, probably students from around the country and around the world.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to do a little rating for me. So you're a Sauhegan High School graduate. You went to Sauhegan High School for 4 years. You went to Amherst Middle School. Your education compared to other kids that you've known, or things that you've done here that maybe they haven't done, and things that you haven't done that they have done. Kind of rating, like how did we do? How did we do as a SAU
Mm-hmm.
and all of our schools to help you be as successful as you are now?
Mm-hmm. I think it's tough because I know I have a lot of close friends who are international students and had very different, high school upbringings and educations. I have two of my best friends went to American schools, one in Paris, one in Bangkok, Thailand. So very, very different, obviously, when you're going to American school in a foreign country. But I think compared to kids that I know who went to public schools or even private schools in the U.S., Sauhegan, I felt just set me up so much better. For example, my roommate freshman year, she went to a private all-girls school. She knew how to study. She knew how to go to the library and read the textbook and make flashcards, but any other project she struggled with. She didn't know how to do that. She didn't know how to advocate for herself to a professor, to her counselor. She just kind of went through the motions because in her Catholic private school, they told you what to do and you did it, and there wasn't a lot of freedom for expression or advocating for yourself. And I know that Sauhegan does an amazing job of letting students advocate for themselves. I mean, we have Division I where you're literally just talking about your strengths and weaknesses within the classroom. So I think it's really important reflections, even though I wasn't required to do reflections in college. I found myself doing it a lot.
It's a big part of something.
Exactly, and evaluating who you are as a learner, and the sooner you figure that out about yourself, the sooner you can find systems that work for you and really succeed in the classroom and with homework and wherever you go.
So one thing I want to ask you, and this is a little off topic, so we have a senior advisor right now on the, as I mentioned, and they're in September. Bring yourself back to September of your senior year.
Yeah.
Do you remember like colleges and athletics and all kinds of other social things that you were going through? What would be some advice you'd say to seniors right now that I could bring to them today about colleges and senior years you go through?
Yeah, the biggest piece of advice I tell kids who are looking at schools is to figure out if you want a big school or a smaller school. It's something that people don't really talk about, but I went on a college tour, all these different schools in upstate New York, and I had 6 of them lined up, and I realized that I hated the small schools. I would go on tours, and the tour guides would pass at least 10 people they knew just on the tour, and it kind of made me realize how small it was. And if you go to a bigger school, Syracuse has 14,000 undergrads, so it's a pretty big school, medium sized compared to something like, you know, Penn State or Michigan, but you find your own community. You'll still walk across campus and see people you know, but I like that I didn't know everyone. So that's me personally, and I always tell people it doesn't matter if you want to actually go to the school or not, but you know, visit UNH, which is a little bit bigger, visit maybe BC, which is a little bit smaller, you know, 2 schools, even if you're not sure you want to go, just to get a feel for the campus atmosphere, because I think it'll just save you so much time with your college tour if you have a better idea of how big you want the school to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So Syracuse, you chose Syracuse.
Yes.
There's an important school there that you were part of. Talk a little bit about that if you could.
So Syracuse was a part of that tour I went on with the 6 different schools. My parents lived in Syracuse. I was actually born there. My mom worked at the hotel that's now owned by the university right off campus. There are dorms in there now, which is very strange. But they said, you should check out Syracuse, and I wasn't really thinking about going there at all, and they said, you know, it has sports. We know you love to go to sporting events. It's how Beacon kids in general like to go to sporting events. It's a big part of the high school culture. Almost everyone plays a sport, so I wanted to go somewhere where there were big games, and basketball is huge there, obviously. So I went to the campus not really knowing what program I wanted, and the girl who gave my tour was in the Newhouse School, which is a school. And she told me all about, she was a newspaper major, and she told me all about the program and how much she loved it. And it was a rainy day, and it ended up being just me and my sister and my mom and her. So it was very personalized, and I just fell in love with the campus. It's absolutely beautiful, and I was like, I feel like I'm home, which is kind of funny because I was born there, so I kind of was home, but I felt very comfortable there, and it was the first place I really felt drawn to. And then I looked into the program and realized that their magazine journalism program was something that I wanted to pursue. So for me, it was a little backwards, but it's a very highly ranked program, and I applied early decision because I knew that's where I wanted to go, and I wanted to try to have a better chance of getting in because it's competitive. And I was lucky enough to get in and know where I was going by December 12th. I still remember the date, senior year, so I was really lucky. I knew before, you know, winter break even where I was going, so that was nice.
And all the kids get the t-shirts or sweatshirts where they're going, and they walk around. I think I remember seeing them in Syracuse shirts.
Yeah, we have a lot of gear now. My dad's always been a basketball fan, so we have a lot of Syracuse gear at my house.
So bring us up to speed. Last question or two. What are you doing now? We talked about you being a private consultant in your own business, so talk a little bit about that, where you got started, where are you going next?
Yeah, so after graduation, I found out that I needed knee surgery. And so it kind of halted my job hunt a bit because you can't really, I was looking at mostly jobs in New York City, and you can't exactly walk around on crutches with bracelets stuck straight. It's just a dangerous thing, it's not safe. You're just a walking target for muggers, and it's tiring. So I couldn't do that. So that kind of got on hold, put on hold. And then I started applying to jobs, and there aren't a ton of magazine jobs in New York available at any given moment. I was really having trouble finding one that both I really wanted, and ones that I actually got an interview for. And my mom found this wedding photographer. I've had some experience with wedding content, wedding photographer in Boston. And she said, there's a social media manager position, you should apply. And I called her up and asked her about it, and she said, oh no, we're having interns doing that. We're not having a position anymore. Like, try this company. And I emailed her anyway, sent her my resume, and she reached out. I think the next name was like, would you freelance for me? Would you consider that? And she started sending me all these other potential clients, and I realized that I could make a business out of exactly what I'm doing for One School Street, what I'm doing for this wedding photographer, just social media marketing, and blogging and editing and website design, all the things that I've done for you guys, and things that I made my own website, and just things that I've learned to do as I've gone through my education. It's not quite working at a magazine, but it's still in the wheelhouse of things that I've done. So I'm trying to start my business right now. I have 2 clients so far. I'm working on a few others, and just seeing where that takes me. Hopefully I can make it full-time, and if not, then I'll get a full-time job and I'll have these awesome side things going on. So
Great.
yeah.
Well, you've been a big help to us. Last question. So one of I talked earlier about a hallmark of Sahuagin being advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
You just told a story about yourself picking up the phone, calling someone.
Yes.
So I would want to talk a little bit more about that. Other areas or other times in your career or at school where you can think, I really needed that advocacy for yourself. Because I remember when you called me to help on One School Street.
Yeah.
That was you advocating for yourself, and
Yes.
you were so lucky. But are there any other times you can think of that really played a big role in getting something done?
I think that for me, the biggest thing about me is that I'm always busy. Anyone who knew me in high school knows that I was on sports teams, and I was on field hockey, prom committee, all these things, always doing something. Very busy, working. I was always working during school. So I thrive off of a busy schedule and being well-rounded and having those different experiences. So when I went to school, I got involved right away. Like, I went to school sick with Lyme. I just found out I had Lyme disease, and I still joined 2 or 3 different organizations my fall semester. So I just don't stop. But when you are that busy, you have to speak up sometimes. When you have to learn to say no. I think that's an important lesson that I maybe didn't learn right away, but I figured out that I needed to advocate for myself when it was too much, and it was okay to not take something on. It was good to talk to professors. They understand that you have a lot going on, at least at Syracuse they did. I'm sure other universities are the same. They know that students are very busy, and a lot of them don't want you just diving into a book in the library every 5 seconds and not having a social life, not having these organizations that you're a part of. They want you to have joy, have a nice college experience. They don't want you to hate, dread your classes because you're so scared about the work. So a lot of my professors, if I told them, I'm running this magazine, I have this deadline coming up, I want to get to this article, but I don't have time to interview these people, is it okay if I have an extension? They were very understanding about those types of things, and if I wasn't comfortable talking to adults and saying, hey, I need help, how can we work something out, then I would have just struggled through college. And I don't know, maybe my freshman roommate, she was still struggling senior year to do that for herself. I have no clue, but I know that kids at Sahuagin, they learn to advocate for themselves and talk to teachers or advisors or whoever when they feel like they're drowning, because Sahuagin cares, and they don't want you to feel like you're drowning. They want you to feel like you have a balanced life.
So lastly, any advice for us, for the schools in this area, that we could change or do better? Any closing questions or comments you want to make? I'm hoping that we have tons of people that'll be watching this video, so any advice you can give us too in front of that would be great.
I think one thing that Sauhegan, and this isn't a bad thing, but there's one thing that Sauhegan maybe didn't prepare me for was taking tests. So when I got to school, one thing I struggled with was studying. I didn't know how to just sit and study, and that's something that I had to teach myself. And I think it's much better to be the person who is having trouble finding, memorization systems or studying versus the person who only knows how to do that, like the girl that I lived with. Because I could do all these other things that a lot of schools don't provide. But I've heard that from other students that they don't know how to study. So maybe I feel like they're high school students saying like, no, don't say anything. But I feel like maybe a test or two wouldn't hurt in a classroom that actually covers a lot of information and it's stressful. But I think if teachers were to set up a study guide, maybe send out some, links of different types of study techniques, or just knowing the type of learner you are is really important. For me, writing things down when I write them, it helps me remember them. If you just say it to me, half of it gets taken in and half of it doesn't. I'm not as much of an audio learner, but if I listen and write it at the same time, like with taking notes, that's how I remember things. So I know that about myself, but I didn't know that when I was a freshman in college. I had to figure that out. So maybe some way to help kids figure out what would be the best method of studying for them, and then maybe having one test that covers a few units so that they get a feel for that type of learning. Because I think it's important to know how you study best, because there will be times even exactly, whether you go to grad school or if you're becoming a lawyer or a broker, you have all those certification tests and things you need to take. So it's definitely a good skill to have. So that might be a good idea.
Great. Well, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you
for
for
all your
having
help
me.
with One School Street.
Mm-hmm.
I look at a bright future for you,
Thank
for
you.
sure, and one of our top high school graduates from Sauhegan. So thanks very much.
Thank you.